Welcome back. This is Daybreak on Trust TV. And now we enter the discussion segment of the program where we'll be discussing a development, of course, of equal concerns to Nigeria, especially as it relates to its economy and developing the business climate. So a few days ago, the CEO, the chief executive of Dangote Industries, came out openly calling on the government, that's the NNPC, to come and buy him out, especially following statements regarding monopoly comments that was made by the NMDPRA and another accusation that he was selling bad petroleum products to Nigeria, around 650 parts per million. Was the figure that was given, and the globally accepted standard for these petroleum products, especially diesel and petrol, should be about 50 million parts per million, so from 50 to 650. However, they began to trade words a couple of days ago. Dangote says, well, you can accuse me, but then again, this refinery is in Lagos. So you can send some people over to come and do whatever laboratory test they might require to prove that he is selling or distributing world-class quality petroleum products to Nigeria. But then again, the bicker continues. Today, we're shining the spotlight on the oil and gas sector, where brewing controversy surrounding the Dangote Refinery has raised critical questions about Nigeria's energy future. Allegations of sabotage, pricing disputes, and quality control concerns have sparked a heated debate about the refinery's impact on the industry. But beyond the headlines, there is a bigger story about the need for system and entrepreneurial development in the oil and gas sector. How can we foster a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship to drive growth, create jobs, and ensure Nigeria's energy security? And joining us virtually, of course, to discuss this development, we have an economist, Steve Nwachukwu. He joins us virtually. Mr. Nwachukwu is a financial analyst and a lead researcher at Steward Asset Management Limited, and he will be sharing insight. Good morning, Mr. Nwachukwu. Welcome.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Yes. So, first question would be, what signals do you think this development, the infighting between Dangote refineries and the government, specifically the NMDPRA, sends to the minds of investors, be it foreign and domestic, about Nigeria's economic climate?
Well, to be honest, it's not going to be a very good signal. It's not going to be a good perception or perhaps understanding of the development. In as much as serious investors will be jittery with this development, I'm sure they also would like to know the details of what has happened, given the fact that system has to be in place, and also there should be a way of developing the entrepreneurs or supporting the entrepreneurs. So I'm sure in as much as they are jittery, in as much as the perception is not that good, I'm also sure that they will love to know the details of these controversies, and they also will want to understand that the system has to be in place. So I'm sure they will put these things into consideration in the midst of their jittery or in the midst of their fears. But at fourth phase, yes, it's not a good signal, it's not a good perception, it's not a good development, and I'm sure that with time things will fail and things will stabilize. Thank you.
Mr. Nwachukwu, the first time that Dangote, I watched an interview of Dangote speak about the refinery. I think it was an interview with an international media organization, and the final question that he was asked was whether if he had an opportunity, to go into similar venture with the knowledge that he has and the experience he has had with constructing the Dangote refinery, will he go into the venture again? And he said, absolutely not. For me, that was the beginning of my doubt. However, this is where we are 1 year later. Dangote is saying, buy me out. I'm no longer interested. Well, maybe it would sort of cause a jittery confidence, in the minds of investors outside. But back home in Nigeria, to young Nigerians who intend, to start up small businesses and become entrepreneurs, if somebody like Dangote would be facing such problems with the government, what do you think would be on the minds of these entrepreneurs who intend to start these businesses, either now or later in the future?
Thank you for that very submission. I think it's an excellent way of responding to the fears of Dangote. In as much as most of us, we share in the pains and fears or troubles of Dangote or sympathize with him, I am also sure that Dangote understands better than most of us who shares in these emotional responses to this very issue. And to be honest, if we have to put things in perspective, Dangote is the biggest beneficiary of government, both this government, successive government, and past government. So I'm sure Dangote understands too what it means to start calling out the same institutions, the same friends in the political circle that have helped him develop, that have helped him build the largest petrochemical refinery in the whole world, and also those who also have supported him in one way or the other to have a sort of landmark achievements or landmark control he has within the business ecosystem in Nigeria and in Africa at large. I'm very sure that he will not, overshoot this argument or overrun these very sentiments and get himself to be hurt, because I know as it stands, nobody is better favored than Dangote. Based on perspective I'm coming from or the informations available, no one is better favored or better favored by government than Dangote. So I'm sure he should not cry more than expected. Yes, there are some hiccups. Perhaps there are some, board disagreements or some level of leadership tussle that they expected Dangote to shift and all those sort of business intrigues. Yes, it's coming to the public and a lot is coming out, and I'm very sure that the issue will not be overflowed. Yes, I know Dangote is feeling hurt as we speak, and that should not be the fate of Nigerians. I know Nigerians are feeling much worse situation than Dangote is facing. So that's why I'm trying to say Dangote should mellow down and still thank God for the opportunities it has. Thank you.
Mr. Nwachukwu, he should mellow down. He might be overflogging these issues, but then again, the consequences of him pulling out, especially of this sector, is going to be dire in the sense that he's already saying, come and buy me out. But in another vein, he's also stating that, the board of the Dangote Industries has also advised that they discontinue plans to invest in Nigeria's steel industry. Now, this is already monies that was supposed to find its way in terms of jobs to the Nigerian families and the likes of that, disappeared in a swift second, aside him wanting to give up the whole refinery thing. Nigeria has 4 refineries, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, 1 in Kaduna, moribund, non-functional. Dangote was supposed to come in some way to, continue from where the government failed. I understand that there's supposed to be another refinery that's been constructed somewhere in the south, Akwa Ibom State to be precise. These private refineries were supposed to ease these tensions, but now here we are, challenges upon challenges upon challenges. How can we foster a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship to drive growth then, if the government would fail in a venture and private individuals are also seeming not to be able to carry on, from where the government has failed?
Okay, thank you. I think based on this question, I think let's try as much as possible to get some level of perspective to our audience to this issue. Yes, let's make 3 to 4 assumptions what must have developed or what must have happened. First, and let's have an assumption, yes, that system has to be maintained, system has to be in place, and there should be some level of the industry itself, protection of the industry through the system, whereby having some level of regulatory provisions that must guide every player, both big and small, investors in the oil and gas sector, given the fact that we have the almighty PIA Act in existence. So then let's also look at another second assumption, which has to do the economics of this very development. what it takes to the economy and what it takes in terms of perception and what Nigeria economy may possibly have to lose if these controversies are lingered and lead to other bigger issues. That's the second assumption. Then the third assumption, let's also look at the assumption from the part of the industrial development of this very sector. So the key industrial players, what is the free playing ground available for them to also strive? Just like you mentioned, there are a couple of modular refineries and also other individuals or entrepreneurs who also have interest to develop either modular refinery or even develop other bigger refineries of up to 300, 400, 600, or even up to 1 million barrel per day processing refining capacity of refinery. So we should not shut our doors to other opportunities for Nigeria. So these are possible 4 to 5 or 3 assumptions or perspective we should look at it. First, the assumption of the system, which is very important. In as much as we need development, in as much as we need to get investors develop our oil and gas sectors, or to have some level of energy sufficiency or energy security, the system has to be in place. The system that will govern and regulate this sector has to be well established and sustainable, and should have its life on its own and work independently of those key players or operators in the sector. So that's why, for sure, I will stand for the side of the government to make sure that the NNPC, not NNPC, the Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum development authority. Hello.
Yes, the NMDPRA you were saying.
Thank you. So they have some level of authority, some level of exercise of their duty, some level of control, some level of regulation of the sector. So that must be established. In as much as we need the development of the sector, we need industrial, we need the entrepreneurs to strive. We need the system to be in place. We need the system to also be functional, not a system that is overwhelmed or monopolized by this very private sector. So that must be paramount, that the system has to be in place, and that system must be working to regulate. Based on the system, you also develop laws around this, and it's only the system that can keep these laws, that can keep these regulations or parameters and whatever have been set out in the standards of production of this very petroleum product. So the system has to be in place, whether we are still importing products or we are refining locally. System has to be fundamentally rich and work independent of these very operators. That established in our first assumption. Then the second assumption is possibly the key industrial players, those individuals that needs to also play in that sector. In a country like is it North Korea, South Korea, sorry, there are more than 3 or 2 refineries. And a good number of these very refineries, at least less than 20 or 30% is consumed locally, and the rest is exported outside. So they don't have crude, but here we have crude. Why can't we still have a 1 million barrel capacity refinery that we can export to the rest of Africa and Europe and other Asian countries that may need this very product? So there should be a free playing ground for other sectors and entrepreneurs to also develop capacity in this area, so that no one should monopolize this very sector. So this is what the system will help establish. Then the economics, which is the third assumption or the third leg of my perspective to this. The third is the economics of all this development. Do we need to refine our product locally? The answer is yes, in affirmative. Yes, we need to refine 100% of our petroleum consumption locally. Has Dangote done good in this area? Yes, Dangote have really given us an edge over the troubles we had in our moribund refinery. Just like you mentioned, we have the Warri refinery, the moribund Kaduna refinery, the two moribund refineries in Port Harcourt, which you've continued to hear rehabilitation, revival, or revamping in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and over $2 to $3, $4, $5 billion have expanded until now. Not even a drop of crude has been refined. So yes, in the economics of it, we need Dangote. Dangote have done so much. Dangote Petroleum Refinery have done so much in this area. The pressure the NNPC continue to pile or put in our exchange market as a result of 100% importation of this petroleum product, be it gasoline, the petrol, the aviation fuel, and the rest of them, it is too numerous. NNPC continue to pile bills in our petroleum, in the importation of this very petroleum product. And if Dangote is here, and Dangote is going to make these savings for us, Dangote, I'm talking about the economics of these very developments.
Of course.
Dangote is going to make these great savings for us. So we need Dangote more than we need. So Dangote remains one of these critical national infrastructure that could guide or safeguard this very energy security we are talking about.
All right.
So we need Dangote in the economics of it. We need more of Dangotes in the economics of it. But overall thing here should be that the system has to be in place. In each of these very perspectives of assumption, 3 of them will work concurrently. None of them should exist in isolation.
All right, Mr.
Both the
Nwachukwu.
system maintenance or sustainability of the system perspective to that of the industrial or the operating environment for other entrepreneurs to establish or develop their own needs to also work in hand with the system itself. Then the support that we needed to give to Dangote to make sure that we have these savings.
More than Dangote needs us, especially in terms of these investments. And of course, we need the likes of the Dangotes to come into the economy and, invest real monies to get real impact. But then again, with these developments, the question of whether this cloud of doubt has begun to develop in their minds is what we need to answer. However, in real terms, what does the government need to do? I mean, how much work does the government have, to do to correct some of these impressions that has been created over the course of the last few days?
Well, the first impression, like I said, let's be mindful of the way we react to these developing stories. Like I keep emphasizing on the system sustainability to keep to the rules of the games. I know for sure that in the petroleum sector, there are standards. We have what they call the 10 to 50 ppms standardization or concentration of sulfur. So I think these are the areas that we need some level of clarity. We also need to have an independent lab that could confirm most of these very claims and dubious claims, and also even on the side of those who also import these very petroleum products. So yes, there are international standards. That's why I keep calling on the system maintenance, independency of the system, so that you don't circumvent any of these processes to the detriment and to the cost implication to Nigerians. So if there is claims, and which I also listened, Dangote also alluded to the fact that yes, he's still working within the provisions of the law in existence. I know there is a circular and a law around allowing any of the local refineries to produce within 600 to 650 ppm, and which is not the international standard. In around the world, in the Europe, in the America, is somewhere around 10 to 50, and we are having a lower standard of 500 to 650. So, and I know that the regulatory body is saying, yes, you can, but that very permission will be short-lived, will be stopped in the months or in the years ahead, which is 2025. So I think Dangote is still within the purviews of the law. Like I said, the dictates needs to come at what is the regulatory provisions on refining product, what is the standard set, what is international best practices, in as much as we need all this investment, in as much as we need to produce locally, we need to keep to the terms, we need to keep to the rules, we need to keep to the standard. That is no good to us if we allow because we wanted something. Yes, like I said, the economists all favor Dangote because we need Dangote more than Dangote even have the refinery. That's why I still insist that government should make sure that they take up those reserve positions of 20% and even more in Dangote port or in Dangote petroleum refinery. The 20% that is reserved for the federal government should find funds to take up that very position. It is strategic business investment. It is strategic to the government. It's strategic to the nation, Nigeria, and it will save a lot of cost for us. And it also help the system we are talking about to have an eye in what is going on operationally wise in Dangote, to know these very standards we are talking about. When you are in the board of Dangote, you'll be able to check this very, find out these details, and be able to assist to make sure that standards are kept. So there is every need to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Like I said, the system has to be in place and standard has to be kept. Standard has to be kept, just like I know that by 2025, the issue of producing within the 600 to 650 ppm will stop. So that's we help to give some level of standardization or clarity of what Dangote is actually producing. But we need Dangote more than Dangote needs us. So government needs to encourage Dangote and make sure that it helps Dangote. If the existing catalyst in their production plants is within this 600 and 650, they should assist Dangote to get the most relevant one. And I'm very also sure that Dangote is built with one of the best equipment or one of the best modern technology. So I'm very sure that they can adjust and adapt to the world best practice. Thank you.
Then. What would now be your call to young Nigerian entrepreneurs with intention to go into business in terms of what they need to look out for, to protect their interest and their businesses, of course?
Of course, every business has its own challenges, and most often in this very client, our client, we have witnessed inconsistency in government policy decision, which in one way or the other have hurt entrepreneurs. So my advice to entrepreneurs is to be mindful of the sector and look at the relevant laws, and possibly also understand the fact that, yes, there may be some level of inconsistency in government policy decisions, and find a way to factor in this. It is an African thing, or should I say it's a Nigerian thing, and government needs to live above board and start becoming focused. Government these days is unpredictable. Policies and decision of government seems like they are not well thought through, they are ill-conceived, just like we have overnight, we are having a windfall tax. Overnight, we had a devaluation of Naira through the policy around flotation. Overnight, we had issues around, although that was legislated upon, the removal of fuel subsidy, but the implementation plans was not well cut out. It was just an outright 100% removal, which should have been a gradual thing. So, yes, the business environment is quite tough, but entrepreneurs should factor in all these and see how they will strive in the mix of inconsistency in government policy decisions, and be mindful of the sectors under studies and have some sort of knowledge of the sectors they are diving into. Right. Yes, there are a lot of politics and interest play. That's why I keep saying that Dangote should not cry more than the bereaved. I know he is one of the powerful businessmen who have enjoyed the privilege more than any other entrepreneur. Imagine me crying and Dangote is crying at the same time. So that's why I said, let them settle the scores and keep to the standard. Whatever is the requirement, Dangote should stick to the rules and make sure that the standards are kept. Yes, right. Those who also want to sabotage such businesses, they should mellow down. We need Dangote more than Dangote needs us.
All right, Steve Nwachukwu, financial analyst with Steward Asset Management Limited. Thank you so much for your contributions on the developments. I know you said Dangote shouldn't cry more than the bereaved, but then I would, say this quote from the lines of a famous musician. He says, Dangote still dey find money. So, which means that Dangote, in other words, is also looking for money, just as much as every other entrepreneur who would be crying about, the business climate in Nigeria. But by and large, thank you so much for the contributions on these developments. We definitely hope to have you sometime again, of course, to discuss much more positive developments in the Nigerian economic space. Steve Nwachukwu joined us on the Daybreak this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Right, that's the discussion segment for you this morning, talking about system and entrepreneur development in Nigeria on the heels of the conversation around the Dangote Refinery controversy and the back and forth between Dangote Industries and the federal government. There you have it. We now go on a break, and when we return, we'll be serving you headlines on the front page of Nigeria's national dailies. Join us again.